For being known for helping us get answers, wisdom sure raises a lot of questions. What does James 1 say about wisdom? Welcome to Looking Intently. I put out 3 short videos on the Bible each week. Right now I'm going through the book of James, and if you've missed any of the past videos, you can click this tag in the upper right and it'll take you to those. To make sure you don't miss any of the other ones, click the subscribe button in the lower right and then that bell icon when it appears. We're in James chapter 1, looking at verse 5, where James writes, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you." Now, the verses that come after this, I think, are some of the most foundational and misunderstood in the whole Bible. I can't wait to get to them. But we also need to talk about wisdom because it can be misunderstood. As I said, it raises a lot of questions sometimes. First one is just, what is wisdom? And you'll hear people, well, wisdom, oftentimes it's associated with maybe wise sayings, what we call proverbs. Things like we find in the book of Proverbs or just in life in general. We've all heard the early bird gets the worm, right? What are some other wise sayings that you've heard? What are some of your favorites, either from the book of Proverbs or just from grandma or grandpa, wherever they came from? Put those in the comments below. I'd love to read those. Oftentimes wisdom is contrasted with knowledge, and you'll get something like, knowledge is information or facts, and wisdom is applied knowledge. It's using it. And I think that's headed in the right direction. I would specifically say that wisdom applies to 2 things. It's the idea of what is the best end or goal or purpose, and then also what's the best way to get there. So it is taking knowledge and applying it. Where should I be headed and how do I get there? Well, you always need to ask as you're studying a passage of the Bible, how does this verse fit with the verses around it, the context? Because that's going to help you understand this verse. So why does James bring up wisdom here? Well, what have we seen so far? He's talked about consider it pure joy when you face these trials. Choose to have an attitude of joy. Choose to face the trials with that attitude. Know that it's your faith that's being tested, and know that if you persevere, it will develop Christ-like character. And then he talks about wisdom. If you lack wisdom, well, he's saying if you lack the wisdom to know that this is best, if you're not sure and you want to know, you want to be convinced, if you want to know how to get there, pray and God will give you the wisdom to know in this specific situation, yes, it's going to be so good if you'll face it with joy, if you'll persevere. Here's what can happen. Here's how to do it. That's what James is talking about here. Well, I'm all for it. I hope you are too. I want the wisdom, whatever situation I'm in, so I pray for it. How do I get that wisdom? This is a place where I see a lot of confusion. I'll hear people say things like, or I'll read and they'll say, you can get knowledge about anywhere, from other people, from, books, anywhere in the world. You can get knowledge, but you can only get wisdom from God. And it's either implied or sometimes even said directly from God. I don't think that's the case. Now, definitely the Bible talks about the world's wisdom versus God's. It says in 1 Corinthians, for the wisdom of the world is foolishness in God's sight. And you just take what I said about wisdom. Okay, the world has a version of what's the best goal and what's the best way to get there. It's foolishness in God's sight. It's just foolishness. It's not God's. But God's wisdom, His way of, okay, here's what's best. Here's the best way to get there. It can come indirectly. I can pray and God can give me some insight. But think about it. If I did that in the past and then I face a similar situation, well, I can look back on that and use that same wisdom. Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it's someone I know. God gave them wisdom and then I'm talking with them. Again, that wisdom can benefit me. And so it didn't come directly from Him, came indirectly. Maybe that person or someone else that I don't even know wrote it down and I can read and get that wisdom. So again, it's still God's wisdom. It's still His version of what's the best goal, what's the best end, and what's the best way to get there. But it can come from those other sources. And I tell you, it reminds me of what I talk about oftentimes, the growth triangle, one of those growth geometry figures. And I'll put the link again. I encourage you to look at that video. And the foundation of that triangle that contributes to our growth is the Word of God. That's where it starts. That's what it's based on. But also past situations I can look at, examine those. What did I learn? What should I learn? And I can talk with other Christians, that third leg of the triangle. We are all operating by wisdom all the time. Now, is it good wisdom or bad wisdom? Is it God's wisdom or the world's wisdom? And that's a good question to ask. How much do I operate based on God's wisdom versus the world's, in general, in a certain area of my life, in a specific situation. Think about that. And then maybe you're facing a specific situation where you need wisdom. It's difficult. God, what is the best thing to do? What's the best way to get to what seems like the best end, the best result? God, I need your wisdom. All right. What are you doing to get it? Use that growth triangle, the Bible, situations, other people, and certainly as you're looking at the Bible, be sure and read the good book like a good book.